We'll call the Public Utilities Committee to order. Will you please take the roll?
Yes. Alderman Bosley. Present. Alderman Cone. Alderman Villa. Here. Alderman Carter. Alderman Coulter. Alderwoman Spencer.
Present.
Alderwoman Green. Alderman Ogilvy. Here. Chairman French.
Present.
5 present. You have a quorum.
Thank you. So, as the chairman of the Public Utilities Committee, the administration has brought me 2 bills and asked me to introduce them. One is related to the reauthorization of an intergovernmental cooperation agreement between the city and MSD, and the other is a rate increase for water rates in the city over a 3-year period due to what has been told to us as a urgent need for improvements to the infrastructure of the water department. So let's start with Board Bill 171. Mr. Scobie?
Thank you, Chairman and board members. Appreciate this opportunity to come before you. I'm asking today that you consider and hopefully support a Board Bill 171 for a rate increase for the Water Division. It's 3 rate increases over the next 3 years, starting July 1st and subsequent July 1st in the following years. This is 7% each time. It's roughly $5 a quarter increase for the average resident. It is, or 6 cents per day. It's been, our last board rate increase was July 1st, 2010. And this is money that we'll use for both day-to-day operations and also to do capital improvements, particularly with aging infrastructure to help renew the system. So with that, I'll answer any questions.
Okay. We can start in order of seniority. Alderman Bosley?
Yeah, will that allow for any increases in salaries?
That would be according to the pay plans as personnel publish them. We fall under the pay plan for the city in general. So if there's a pay increase in there, then we'll follow that.
Whenever the state increases a salary, that means that you will.
Not the state, the city. When our pay is part of the pay plan that is done every year or every other year. We follow it for the whole city, just like the whole city.
Have we ever been made apprised of what the salaries are of people in your department?
I have not handed that out, but it's public record. It's been published on by the Post.
Publish that.
The Post-Dispatch has it on their website, and has for years.
Do you bother to send anything over to the board, because you come here for us to vote on stuff?
It's, I've never been asked, so I hadn't considered it.
Well, I think from now on, you should send it to the board. If you want us to vote for something, we should be apprised of what it is that you're going to do with the increase in money.
Well, we're not asking for a rate increase purely for increased salaries. There is a lot of infrastructure needs. On our mains, we have over 1,300 miles of water mains in the street, like 15,000 fire hydrants. We have a lot of valves. We have 2 treatment plants. All this facility is aging and is at or approaching the end of its normal useful life, and we need to address some of that. And then we also have increases in electricity, just like everybody else. When Ameren increases their rates, our rates go up. Our chemical costs have gone up. The pension plan under the city has gone up, as has medical insurance. All these things are paid for by the revenue we generate through the rates.
Well, since we have to vote on this, should we not be made apprised of what it is before the fact?
Okay,
We should be known, we should know what's going on before you come here asking for an increase, because Joe Blow, who lives in my ward, who looks up and sees $5 more on his water bill or whatever bill he's gonna get there as a result of your increase, he ain't gonna call you. They're gonna call us.
Commissioner, if
go
I
ahead.
can, so to the Alderman's point, could you first tell us how much would be generated from this increase? And then can you give us a breakdown on what you plan to spend that money on?
It is, yeah, I can, all three rate increases, once they are completed, are gonna generate approximately $10 million annually to our revenue. And one of the things that we want to spend this on is addressing capital improvements, both through cash financing through the annual budget. We would also come back to you guys to look for ordinance money, to set aside money that, to address specific projects for capital improvements. And then also, I think, at the end of the third rate increase, we were going to seek a $75 million bond issuance, which we would have to come back to the committee and the board for approval to address capital improvements. Now, the other, there are daily operations that we have to, cost escalations that we have. Since our last rate increase in 2010, medical insurance has gone up 40-some percent. That's about $608,000. The retirement plan is additional $527,000 that we have to cover.
Mr. Scobie, do you have any of this for us, any handouts, or is this the only thing you've?
That's what I prepared for you, but I'll be happy to provide you with a list
Yeah.
of all this.
So I think what would be helpful is if you can break down how much you plan to generate per year from this increase in rates, what the needs are of the water department, how much of those needs this increase will satisfy. Also some information about the bonds which you plan to sell in year 3, is that correct?
Yes.
In year 3. And then also maybe a copy of the department's budget.
Okay.
So those are my 4 requests. I'm sure other members will have others. Alderman Bosley, did you have any more questions?
Well, yeah, it don't cost you any more for the water than you used to pay, or these salary increases that we're talking about?
That's a part of it, but it's not the biggest, it's part of it, but it's not the biggest part of what we're seeking here. I mean, everything that we spend money on contributes to, is paid for by the rate. So if we see salary increases, that goes into it. But that's not, we don't need 3 rate increases to cover that. There's a lot more that we're seeking to do with this money.
Any further questions?
What else can you say?
Okay. Let me also specify the budget that you give us. Can that also include the balances of the reserve account?
Yes.
Okay. We'll go down the list. Alderman Cone, Alderman Villa.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Kurt, how did we arrive, or how did you arrive at the 7%?
I looked at what our capital improvement needs are and identified what we thought we should be addressing in the immediate future, and how much that would cost and what it would take for us to sell the bonds and generate the revenue. That's how I came to the 777. Because we need a certain amount of income revenue above operation to cover the cost of the new debt we would be taking in. And that was the driving force of coming up with this proposal.
When the city's bond rating is affected, altered one way or the other, the water department being an enterprise account, correct?
Yes, it is.
What affects your bond rating? You told us, you just told the chairman that maybe 3 years down the road, you're gonna be doing a bond issue, which you would come back before the alderman for. But do you know, is your bond rating pretty steady?
It is. It's pretty, pretty steady. It's good. We actually haven't been rated in the last year or so because we have paid off our bonds. We have got entered into a low-interest loan with the state that sold bonds, but since it's through that mechanism, it is not rated. So we don't currently have a rating, but we've had in the past. And then when we go to sell these bonds, we'll get rated again.
Is that program through DNR?
Yes, it is.
Okay. Could you tell me, as a resident of the city of St. Louis, is my water, where does it compare to Memphis? Or, I mean, how are we in terms of urban areas? Is there such a thing as a national rate or rating as to where our water rates are, where they've been?
There's surveys that are done, and our rates are very low. We're lower than our competitors, Missouri American in the county, and will be even after these rate increases.
How about Kansas City? Do you know?
I don't know offhand, but we're competitive there too. We traditionally have low rates, very low rates, in comparison. And those utilities do treat the same water and have basically the same treatment processes that we do.
What is the newest form of any kind of infrastructure that the water department has done? Or are we dealing with all the turn of the century? I'm just using my neighborhood as an example. An awful lot of the lateral lines that run out to the alley are shot, kind of like me. So what's the newest form of infrastructure the water department's done? Are we just dealing with all old infrastructure?
No, we have some newer infrastructure. Over the years, we built new chlorine facilities, handling and storage facilities. We've also replaced a number of mains with new pipe. Yeah, we have a project on sublet where we're lining a existing steel conduit with a plastic liner to extend its life. We have done that. We're doing a model of the computer model of our distribution system so that we can better judge where we need to do our investment. So we're a utility set up to serve 1 million people, but we have 319,000 customers that we serve now. We don't necessarily need a 20-inch main in some places anymore when we go to replace it. Maybe a 12-inch or a 15-inch will suffice. And the model will allow us to make that decision. So we're doing several things. One of the things I would like to do on the projects in the proposed bond issuance is a new lime feed system. Lime is a chemical that we feed to our treatment plants. It softens the water, elevates the pH, and by putting in a new system with new technology, we think that we can reduce the amount of lime we're feeding now by 25% and see maybe up to $600,000 annually in savings in that chemical cost alone. But we need the money in advance to do this type of project.
How did the MSD suit, the suit that they lost for I think it was $4 billion, did that adversely affect our water department?
No, it did not. We're two independent organizations.
Oh, no, I understand that. I just thought maybe there would have been some type of spin-off as a result of how the water was getting to where it was going.
Yeah, that's not
the case.
affecting us.
If, my final question, Mr. Chairman, and thanks for putting up with me. The 7, 7, and 7, if I'm my next door neighbor, does that scare the heck out of me or not?
Any rate increases aren't popular, you know, no one likes them, but they're a fact of life. It's a, you know, Missouri American gets asked for rate increases, Ameren, the electric company, they ask for rate increases, MSD, we all know, is asking for a lot of rate increases. It's just, you know, costs go up, and we got to cover it. And the only way that we can pay for our costs is through charging our customers, passing that on to them. We try to be very fiscal responsible. We've done a number of things to cut costs, to keep costs down. I think we're pretty good at that, or getting better at that, and we got some things in line to save costs in the future.
And Kurt, so the 7, 7, and 7 would accelerate your income, and then you would be better poised to issue bonds for infrastructure.
That's correct, and it will also allow us to do some cash financing of bonds, but it will allow us, because if we don't address this stuff is going to start failing at increasingly frequently. You're going to have more main breaks. We have pumps at our plants that are 50, 60 years old. They need to be replaced. When they start failing and we run out of options of pumping water.
Didn't we make the same mistake in 2010? But when the rates were raised in 2010, prior to that, when was the last time we had a rate increase? Do you know? You weren't here.
I was with the utility. We had a number of rate increases in short order. We had one in July of 2010, and then we had another one in April of 2008. And but that's when we kind of had a perfect storm. We had gone for a time without our rate increases. Our revenues, our reserves were depleted. The economy tanked, so we had a decrease in people using water, and our revenue was impacted. We had people walking away from homes. Our revenue was impacted. But it's also a time that we were seeing unprecedented increases in our chemicals, which is a major, treatment chemicals, which is a major cost. We had suppliers that were willing to walk away and lose, you know, a $600,000 performance bond because that was cheaper than supplying the chemical. And so we were in kind of dire straits. And since then, we have really made a lot of changes and tried to improve.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Let's add to the info request there, based on Alderman Villa's questions. Can you get us some kind of a chart comparing the rates for St. Louis City, maybe Kansas City, St. Louis County?
Yeah.
So we have something to compare that. And then also info on the rate increases over the last 15 years?
I can provide you a timeline on each rate increase.
Thank you.
Okay,
All right, so I'll add that to the list.
okay.
Next up, Alderman Coder.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thanks for being here today, Kurt. And thanks for the tour, I guess, last year of the water plant. I really enjoyed that. So I'm looking at this ordinance page towards the back of the board bill 171. Are these all your rate increases, I guess, since the 80s? Is that what these numbers represent? I see the 7s that are proposed, 12% back in 2010. You mentioned 2008, that 19%. Are those the rate increases for the last, I guess, since the 80s?
Yeah, I didn't hand that out to everybody.
Well, it's in the ordinance, or in the board bill. I just want to make sure I'm understanding this correctly. you have a copy, do you have a copy of it? 171?
Yeah, I have a copy of 171.
The last page.
My last page does not have that in it.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
Yes, that is exactly a history of the rate increases.
Okay, so look, based on this, the last one was a 12% increase in 2010, right?
That's correct.
Okay, all right, so, and now we're at 2016 here for a rate increase. Is there a reason you guys don't do these, I guess, why don't you do these more gradually as opposed to, you know, a 19% here, a 12% there, a 7% now? Is there a reason you come every, 5 to 6 years as opposed to, maybe some gradual increase on an annual basis?
Well, that's been proposed, and it's kind of in response of what's going on in individual needs. After the last rate increase, we had 3 in very short order, and they were substantial, as you can see on that one diagram. It's and so in essence, we didn't want to come back very soon for a rate increase. We wanted to make some changes and see what we could do with the money we had.
Okay. All right, so looking at this chart, I guess you guys handed out with the City of St. Louis Water Division typical quarterly bill calculations, current rates and proposed. So if you could maybe walk us through this. You guys, your billing's based on, it's not based on any sort of metering, right? It's based on rooms and front square footage and all sorts of other factors. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. Well, in part, we do have meters. We do have some residents that are on meters, but the majority of our residency are flat rate based on the number of rooms, toilets, showers, et cetera.
Could you explain why is that? Why are some folks metered and some folks just a flat rate based on rooms and showers and those systems? What's the parameters for being on a meter versus being in the flat rate system?
Well, there's a couple. One, some people, residents are required if they have like a in-ground pool, they're supposed to have a meter.
Okay.
I would say that most people are on flat rate because our utilities started in 1835. They didn't use meters then. So as things got built out and set up, it was set up as flat rate, and it stayed like that. Over the years, some people have chosen to install meters, and that's an option to any customers. They can install a meter. And some people, it makes sense for them to install a meter. It's cheaper. If you own a big house and there's only 1 or 2 people there, you're probably better off with a meter. Your bill will be less. But if you have a large family or a small house, you might be better served with a flat rate.
Okay, and is this sort of setup common in I guess, in Missouri and in other cities, or do more cities use sort of meters on every property to get a more accurate, I guess, picture of water use and consumption and, cost per household?
It's, we're not unique in this, but it's becoming less common to have flat rate.
Okay.
But there are a number of utilities that still have flat rates. Some of them move away from flat rate and go to meters depending on their situation. It gets kind of complicated, meters, switching over because, the whole purpose of the rates are to sustain the operation of the utility. So it's a different formula switching over from flat rate to meter, because when you put in meters, people tend to use less water, so your consumption goes down and your revenue goes down, so it may trigger a rate increase to make up for the lost revenue. It also is very expensive to install meters. It's about $1,000 account to install a meter. And we have 79,000 flat rate accounts. So you're talking close to $80 million to just install meters. And those meters have to be read, you have to maintain them, and then ideally in 15 years or so, you're replacing them. So you have a very short life compared to some of our other infrastructure. And you gotta look at it to see what economical return to make this substantial investment. $80 million is more than what I'm proposing in this bond issuance for some new pumps, new valves, and some main replacements.
Okay.
So it's competing against other maybe more pressing needs.
Right.
At some points, we may switch over, but the driving force, I haven't seen it where it would force the issue
Right.
and justify the expense. But we have people contact us pretty regularly to say, I would like to have a meter, and we'll go over their situation and say, you know, this might work in your favor, might not, and if they want to put a meter, we have no problem with that.
Okay, so residents can opt in and put in their own meter, pay
Right.
for it themselves, all that, and about $1,000 for one of those. So, and I get it, you guys are in a difficult situation because, well, you know, we're lucky, we have an abundant water supply, unlike some places. So if people start metering and using less water, puts you guys in a difficult situation where you then have to raise rates more. So, I mean, based on your industry, you obviously know a lot more about this than any of us. I mean, what needs to happen to get people, to keep you guys in the financial black and have the money to make the investments you need, but also to get people more cognizant of their water usage? Although we have an abundant water supply, you know, I get the sense that in this town, people really don't think much about their water usage at all. I mean, they sort of take it for granted that we have so much of it, and that might not always be the case. So what can we do to get people thinking more about their usage and their consumption, while also, you know, and encouraging more conservation, while also helping keep you guys financially, you know, solvent?
Well,
And I know that's a big question, sorry.
It is. Water conservation is something that we don't have the driving force out west where water is scarce, is very expensive. We don't have that. We don't invest a whole lot of money in that. But we are part of organizations that do promote water conservation. The new plumbing codes, as they come out, they have restrictions and low flow toilets and faucets and shower heads. That's, you know, I know Missouri American meters, and I know that we have seen a decline that we think in part is due to that. And over time, I think people are more cognizant of the fact you just don't waste the water.
Okay.
And I think we do see that. Well, I don't see as much wasted water as I drive through the neighborhood as I used to. It's still there, but it's less.
Last. Well, that's good. That's good. And hopefully we can continue moving that direction. All right, so back to your sort of capital needs. You mentioned, okay, so add meters to all the houses. We're looking at like that's like an $80 million investment. That's probably off the table. You mentioned, you know, this rate increase, I guess will get you, once it's in full effect, about $10 million a year. Is that right? Okay, so you got $10 million there with the rate increase, plus you're talking about a $75 million bond issue. I mean, where does that get you in terms of your total capital needs? What do you really need to fix the infrastructure underground and to improve our water system?
Well, this was handed out here.
Oh, is that what this is?
While I was talking, yeah. And this is capital needs that were identified when we looked at our system here, and it's almost $400 million.
Gotcha. That's what this for. Okay.
And what we did, we're not going to ask or get that amount.
No.
If we had money to this magnitude, this is what we would spend it on today. And, but we identified what we really needed in the short term to keep us going. And that's was what I came up with, the 777. With $75 million bond issue and what we can do with the cash or cash finance out of our budget, we can keep address some of these more pressing needs.
Okay, thanks. This is helpful. I didn't realize that was the foremost. All right, my last question, I guess, is, well, two questions. One, water main breaks. I seem to see a lot of them. I know we had a big one downtown just over the weekend that caused millions of dollars in damage. And I don't know that it was the water department's fault, but it was a mess. How many water main breaks are there in the city? How many breaks do you think you're seeing on a monthly basis? Because they seem to be with increased frequency. I'm seeing a lot of water department crews out and about in the neighborhoods. So that's the one question. And then my next question is finally just, could you explain how our commercial and industrial customers billed, are they all metered? Okay, so they're all metered, that answers that. So just talk about the water main breaks, if you could, and the increased frequency of those.
Over time, as the pipes age, you tend to have more breaks. And we have seen over the last 3 decades, an increase in the number of water main breaks. We have targeted mains for replacement here over the last maybe 10 years that are giving us a lot of trouble. And I think we have slowed that increase, but there is increasing amount of breaks. We average around 300 water main breaks a year.
Okay. How many water mains are there? Approximately, ballpark, I don't,
Well, there's at least one in every street, but there's
Okay.
1,300 miles of water main in the
Okay.
system.
thank you, Mr. Chairman, no more questions. Thanks, Kurt.
So this document,
Yes.
this goes towards a couple of the information requests, but I do wonder if we can get it in a little bit more readable.
Yes,
I
yes.
think it works fine in color, but when you put it in black and white, it's a little hard to read. And then the number at the bottom here, funding by proposed rate increase, it equals 100 million. The bond you're issuing is 75?
Right, we trimmed it down further.
Okay. Okay, so, yeah, can you provide one that reflects the 75 million total?
Sure, I'll do that.
All right. Alderwoman Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Mr. Scobie, for being here today. I also really enjoyed the tour of the plant and learning more about how we have such a first-class water plant, and the water in St. Louis is second to none, for sure. I have a couple of questions about the budgeting, how the St. Louis City water fits in the St. Louis City budget. Can you tell us what the annual operating budget for the water department is?
Yes, it's about $57 million a year. We're an enterprise account, just like the airport.
Okay.
We are not part of the general revenue. We fund all of our needs through the rates that we collect from our customers.
So can you tell us what, with a $57 million annual budget, what you annually bill customers?
It's it's around 57 million.
So it's, so what do we do, what do we do with the profits or losses that occur on a yearly basis? Do we have is it just
Well,
a kind of
we-
money in, money out in the water department separate from the St. Louis City budget?
Yes, it is separate. There's a couple things there. One is our profits go into capital improvements. We spend it on, if we have excess money, we set it aside until we have enough money to do major capital improvements. You're talking $1 million or several $1 million project. Nothing that we do is cheap. And so we set it aside until we have enough that we can come to the board, get an ordinance passed, set it aside, and then it's earmarked for this. That's what we do with the excess money we have. Now, we have, we're required by our debt to maintain a certain reserve, so that if we run into a crisis of some sort, we have money to function and meet our needs. And that's 120 days of operation. That's about $18 million. And right now, we have close to $20 million in reserve. So we have about a $2 million different than what we're really required to have and what we don't have. And that money eventually will be put into an ordinance that you guys will vote on, and then we'll spend it on the improvements in the facilities. I mean, it's, in the end, every capital improvement we do, we typically save money in the long term. Because when we have a main break, multiple main breaks in the same location, that's usually on overtime. That's quite a bit more expensive than a planned replacement over time.
Are the operations of the water department guaranteed by the city of St. Louis? In other words, if we have a major catastrophe and we deplete the $20 million in reserves, we obviously have to continue to provide water to our citizens. Is the operating of the St. Louis City Water Department then guaranteed by St. Louis City general revenue?
I don't know what would happen, but I suspect that the city would do everything it could to keep us operating. You know, we touch everybody's lives. We provide health and safety services to everybody. We provide the water to the fire department so they can fight fires. They don't have anything to do if they don't have water. We provide health issues. We protect the health. Our water that we provide is free from the disease-causing organisms that used to plague cities. We're free from contaminants at levels that can cause us health issues. We're an essential service, and none of our businesses or schools or anything else can function if there's no water. So I think, getting back to, if we ran into the issue that we needed more than $20 million in an emergency, I'm pretty sure the city would come up with it.
You mentioned earlier that we have 79,000 flat rate accounts. How many accounts do we have citywide that would include the metered accounts?
It's meters, I believe, is about 13,000 additional accounts, and those are primarily commercial and industrial accounts.
Okay. Do you have, I didn't see, I see how this rate increase would affect the non-metered accounts. How would the rate increases affect the metered accounts? Would it just be scaled up with the, 7%, 7%, 7%?
Yes, there is. It would be 7% across the board. Actually, the table on the end of the ordinance is, it has breakdown of our different rates. And you can look at that. We have a special rate for hospitals, for schools.
Where's?
Oh, I guess, I'm sorry. I'll provide you something. I'll have a breakdown. My mistake.
Okay. So we could see the rate increases for the, regular metered commercial users. Do we also have, I see the special rates for schools, charities. Some utilities offer special rates, negotiated rates with large utility users. Ameren, for example, has a special rate, with certain big companies. Does the water department have any large users such as AB that may have a special negotiated water usage rate?
We don't have individually negotiated rates for those customers. We have a declining block rate. As you use more water, you reach a point where then water beyond that is at a reduced rate.
Okay.
And there's this tiered like that. And then also we have wholesale accounts that are negotiated through long-term contracts.
How many negotiated accounts do we have in the city of St. Louis?
Not in the city, but we have 3 wholesale accounts.
Can you share, is that public information, those, what accounts are they?
We sell wholesale water to Missouri American and St. Louis County. We sell waters to St. Peter's and St. Charles. They're combined on a single service. And then District Number 2 in St. Charles County.
Okay, so we don't have any corporate negotiated rates in that way.
Right. We do not have any industrial or corporate negotiated rates.
Can you share with us those graduated rates and how many users are affected by that, and again, if those rates would increase by the same flat percentage increase? Is it the same increase across the board for all users is what I'm looking at?
Yes, everybody, the commercial, industrial, everybody is going to see a 7% increase across the board.
Mr. Chairman, if you don't mind, I'd like to request the information of those graduated, how those big users may enjoy a certain discount, if that's feasible to provide the committee.
Yes, I can. Let me make sure I understand what you're actually looking for. The rates that are increased and the gradation is contained within the board bill. Now, if you want a list of the 10 largest users, we could probably provide that for you.
Well, you have a rate per, the rate is per, cubic foot of, or cubic, there's a certain rate.
100 cubic feet.
Right.
Typically.
And then, you know, you were mentioning that if you're a large user, once you get over a certain threshold, that water rate is reduced per unit. Am I understanding that correct?
Yes, above that
So-
amount, it would be reduced. And that's in,
Is this over to 20,000 CCF?
yes, that's it, exactly.
CF stand for?
100 cubic feet,
100.
Okay.
yeah.
I see. Okay. To the alderman from the 7th point, we don't really see any other, we're not really moving towards a kind of practice of having a general practice of installing meters in the city. Am I understanding that correctly?
That's not part of this, these board bills, but it's something, we're not forcing the issue. It's available to the customers. We kind of look at it every now and then as an organization, but it's not part of what we're considering today.
The reason I ask, in addition to Alderman Coder's point that, you know, it would increase conservation and, you know, reward that, for our lower income users and folks on a fixed income who maybe are elderly and the water usage may not reflect, the water charges may not actually reflect what their usage is, and it would be useful to give consumers an option to conserve, to reduce their bill. Right now, so many of our fixed-income residents have a fixed charge that they are unable to affect through usage, and so that is that has a negative impact on our lower-income residents. And so if we were able to move the city towards a metered charging system, then that would enable people to control their own utility costs. Because as you know, water is not a luxury, it's a necessity in life. And you can't even have occupancy in the city without having a water service to a building. Your building will get condemned if you fail to pay your water bill and it's shut off. And so for that reason, I want to see a city where we have a significant number of low-income residents be able to provide some level of control over their water bill. I understand that's a very big expense, but I do think it's certainly worth noting and worth working towards. On that same subject matter, do we have any programs for low-income residents that offer assistance to low-income residents to pay their water bill?
We do not as an organization have that, but we do refer to them to, like the United Way. If they can call 211 and ask for assistance, and see if they can get assistance that way.
Do other municipal water providers have programs for low-income consumers to apply for a discounted rate?
There are others, and the different utilities do that. But then it becomes a question of how do you fund the discount that you're providing them, because the rates are there to cover the cost of providing service. So if they're not paying the full cost of service, we have to come up with the money elsewhere. And we've looked at it, and we looked at a couple of different mechanisms. But one thing that we're concerned about, if you have a program that if it isn't fully funded to meet the needs of the community, then you're leading people into situations of providing false hope.
Oh, sure.
That it's, you know, we have, I've seen that in other utilities. They say they do have this, but then they have a waiting list if people are on it for a year or more.
I wonder if, when introducing such a large rate increase, there would be a way to incorporate a way for some of our lower income users to be able to be exempted from this, you know, if we could build into the very significant rate increase, a way to protect some of our lower income users from having to experience the increase. And we could build, if there was a way to build that in to what we're what we're proposing, and whether that looks like, even increasing the water rate a little bit more for the general user. And because you're right, I mean, I've taken a look at some comparative studies. We don't have extremely high water charges, and we provide a very phenomenal service to our residents in a general sense. But I want to make sure that we provide a way to protect some of our most vulnerable citizens from having to sustain and stomach a very large increase on a bill that they really have no control over.
It is, I mean, the rates will adjust however is decided by the board here. But it is it gets complicated trying to have this and trying to provide it. You have, what is the poverty rate in the city of St. Louis?
Close to 30%.
So you would have 30% from the very get-go that would have to, it wouldn't be paying for the full level of service.
Well, that wouldn't necessarily be true, because many of our residents that live at or below poverty are renters, and so the person the payer of the water bill would be the property owner, in which case they would have to absorb that cost. But this would be for our lower income users who are paying it directly out of pocket. I want to take a step back too and mention that most utilities in the state of Missouri have, come when they are looking for rate increases, come before the Public Service Commission. And the St. Louis City Water is unique in that we don't have to come before a commission to have a full audit and review of what we're actually proposing to do. In the case of, in the 22% increase here that we're proposing, in a general sense, I think it would be worthwhile to have a real option for public input, and have a hearing that would allow for the public to weigh in, because looking at these infrastructure needs, there's certainly nobody in the city, certainly not myself, that would want to put in any way, shape, or form jeopardy the high quality of water service that we provide. But when the story just goes out that we're increasing the water bill by 23%, this is alarming, and I think it really begs for public input. And so I'm requesting that we have some level, but I know that there's at least one member of the public here, but perhaps for example, the city of Austin just underwent, they're a municipal water company that doesn't go before the Public Service Commission equivalent in Texas, but they did hire an outside company to do a full audit of their proposed increase and their expenses. I'm not saying that we need to go to that extent, but other municipalities have provided a significant review of a proposed increase for their municipal water service.
We don't have an audit in that respect, but we are annually audited, our books, and we
Oh,
can
really?
provide that for you on the committee.
I think that would certainly be very helpful. Again, I mean, there does seem to need to be some outside expert, weigh in, and again, the general public to be able to view this. Do you have a public message that comes along with this? Maybe, something that would go out to our residents and the people that are going to experience the increase to say, we provide an excellent service, and these are the infrastructure needs that are dire, that we will all suffer without, including these, and then some, public messaging that we can then use to also explain to our residents and validate what we're doing here?
Yeah, we'll typically do a public information to people and talk to them about why we're seeking a rate increase, and how we're going to use it, the driving forces, and how it'll be utilized. I mean, we're not talking a large, outlandish rates that we have compared to, water, we're still gonna be cheaper than Missouri American in the county that takes the same water, treats it the same way, and delivers it to their customers. So it's not like we have a inflated, non-competitive rate. But, and part of what we do is, when we have debt, we are required every 2 years to do a rate sufficiency study to verify, to protect the loaners or creditors, that are we charging enough to cover the debt? And we're due to do one here next year. We did one 2 years ago, and that's something else we can provide you if you would like.
As a separate entity, are you rated separately from the city of St. Louis as far as your bonding capacity goes?
We will be when we sell bonds.
Okay. And is that related to the St. Louis City bond rating, or how does that work?
They're connected, they influence each other. If we have a very poor rating, it will be reflect on the cities and the other way around.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman, for so many questions. I just have two more. Does the water department coordinate with any other departments in the city of St. Louis? For example, the problem properties department, I mentioned earlier when water is shut off. The reason I am asking, we do have some very predatory landlords who allow the water to get shut off, and oftentimes nothing is done to remedy that situation. Is there any level of coordination with the city, other city departments, the building division or otherwise?
Well, there is interaction at different levels for different purposes. Obviously, when we excavate in the street, we're dealing with the street department, for example, public health. We will coordinate some things with them. We do interact with other departments quite a bit. We depend upon personnel department, supply division. We utilize their service. Our contracts are let through BPS. We are very much a city department.
I see. Do we alert the city when accounts are shut off or anything of that nature? I know when Ameren gets a new account, they report to the city every new account that's open, and that way we can make sure that we're adhering to housing conservation and going in and doing an inspection and those types of things.
We don't notify them every time a account is open or shut. We've never been asked to provide that notification.
Okay. And my last question, some municipal water providers provide a service to community gardens. They offer a tap-in, service that is a very, very accessible fee to promote and encourage and increase the number of community gardens in a city. And from what I understand, we don't offer that service from the St. Louis City Water Department. Would that be something we could look into including as a net benefit to our neighborhoods?
We work with Gateway Greening on community gardens, and what we would like for people seeking a community garden to go to them and talk to them about wanting to put in a garden, and then we'll provide free service for them if they go and do that.
You'll provide a free tap-in service?
We don't run the connection line for them. I mean, you run into issues, you're running doing work on private property for a private purpose typically, and but we'll work with them to provide service.
The free water?
Yes.
Right, yeah. Okay, I think I'm just mentioning other city do offer that service, that tap-in. I know it can be convoluted on private property. It's usually city property. They would be on a public property. I think it's something certainly worth looking into to put to use the vast number, 12,000, I think, vacant lots in the city of St. Louis that we currently have, and make that idea of having a community garden accessible to some of our low-income communities who wouldn't be able to afford the $4,000 or $5,000 tap-in fee. Gateway Greening has a very limited number of funds to be able to do that, and so it's not something that has been it's not a service that's been accessible to many folks. Mr. Chairman, that's all the questions I have. Thank you.
Thank you. So first to your point about public input, so let me be clear, so we won't be passing this thing very quickly if it is passed at all. But I think step one is for members of the committee to be informed, to be able to get all the information, to be able to actually understand what is being proposed. And then we can do an assessment of our own, whether we think it's warranted to have an increase. I am always conscious that we have, even though the rates are still lower than others, and we'll see this more clearly when you give us the comparison chart, since 2001, we have almost doubled our rates, though, from the 2001 rate over the last 16, 15 years. So we'll take a look at, where the budget is, what the reserves are, and the department and the administration will continue to make the case that we need to raise the rates. Next up is Alderman Ogilvy, but I see Alderman Cone has come.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Kurt, I appreciate your work. You guys do a phenomenal job of delivering, water to the city. I know there are challenges that are out there, and I remember, quite a few years ago, Veolia was a huge concern for, many of our residents, and privatizing our water division, which I still to this day remain adamantly opposed to. But I remember those discussions at that point in time where, folks were talking about, metered, water and how important that is, and that they would be okay with it. And these were folks that were, advocating, for folks in low income and social justice situations.
Is he invited back there or what? No, you can't come past there. We'll have. Sign your name up? We'll have seconds. Yes. Okay. Where's the sergeant at arms around here? Continue on.
He's not invited. Where have we, since those discussions have taken place, have we done any evaluation of what it would cost to go over to a metered system entirely?
Well, to install meters is about $1,000 per customer, and we have 79,000 flat rate customers, so it'd be close to $80 million to install meters.
And how much through these rates are we looking at collecting with the additional revenue?
We're looking at an additional $10 million when we're finished with the third one annually.
So if we went over to a metered position, would we anticipate more revenue or less revenue from that?
I have not done a detailed analysis, but I would say we would need to fund it, come up with the funding for it, and I don't know whether we'll end up with more revenue or less, because our rate structure is set up with a large component of it being flat rate to provide us the funds to operate on. And when you do install the meters, you will see people using less water. Where that would go, I don't know. It may work out neutral to the revenues. I don't really think it's going to increase our revenues. And one of the things is you install a meter on some of these older homes that particularly haven't been well maintained, then you trigger a situation where they have high water bills because they have a leaking toilet, a dripping sink, and having to deal with that. So there is unintended consequences that factors into progressing with going to meters.
I just, I've lived in my current house for about 12 years now. Ameren has changed their meters on the house probably once in that time period, so that they updated it so that they can get an electronic read from the street. Laclede, I think, has updated theirs twice in that same time period. And the city, I don't even have one for the city. And, I think it becomes a real challenge for moving forward when we're talking about rate increases, when we're not talking about actual usage as well, for the customer. you know, I can see maybe having like a base rate charge for service and then a usage charge on top of that, similar to what, you know, the other public utilities do. I know, you know, Laclede Gas in particular bills like a standard. And then, you know, once you get above a certain amount of usage, then they, you know, charge you, you know, X amount for the remaining, you know.
We do the same
Or the
thing for
difference.
meter accounts. We have
So, but why aren't we examining that then?
We look at it every now and then. It's just that it's a lot of money to invest to get it up and running. It's unknown whether we're going to how that'll impact our revenue coming in. And we just haven't had a driving force to say this is where we need to go and do. It'd be a nice thing to do. And the other thing is, we're not telling customers they can't put in a meter now.
They just have to pay for it.
Yeah, and they have to, set it up so that we can place the meter there. And if we go and do it as a utility, we're gonna have to raise the rates to cover the cost of installation to make it work. And that in turn comes back from our ratepayers too. So it gets complicated, I guess is what I'm saying. I'm not opposed to it, and I think at some point in the future, we're gonna be there. I'm not sure that saying today we're gonna do a massive switchover is the appropriate way of doing it this time. It may be at some point a reason to do all at once.
How many water utilities across the country just charge a flat rate fee with no meter?
I'm not sure, but we're in the minority, but we're not extremely rare either. There's some utilities I found in a search in California that still charge based on a flat rate.
Have there been utilities, water utilities specifically, that have switched over from flat rates to metered rates in the last 20 years?
There has been, I can't cite the utility off the top of my head. And so, you know, I think a lot of times the driving force is if, like out west, you have a scarce source of water,
Right.
and you want the prices are going way up. I mean, nothing like ours. And they also don't have another option for additional water. They have growth in their communities. They need the extra water. So, you know, those are the driving forces that makes it worthwhile. And then they can charge to cover the cost, and it makes an economical sense.
Well, I certainly look forward to more conversations around this. I appreciate the chairman taking the consideration to have these conversations and allowing us the opportunity to ask questions. And I do agree with, you know, my colleague from the 20th Ward that I think we should have more public input. I do, you know, just want to reiterate that, you know, part of the reason that the Water Commission doesn't go to the PSC is because it is a publicly owned utility. And so as a publicly owned utility, we are essentially the PSC for the water utility. And so this is our public hearing. As you know, I'm sure we'll have more, and would be the opportunity, and hopefully in the evening hours as well, when people have some availability to come out and, you know, provide their comments and feedback. So, you know, we are the oversight for the utilities, and should act in accordance with that, and also provide our constituents with the opportunity to come and provide their feedback. And so I look forward to having more conversations around this, and seeing what, you know, the aldermen, the utility, and our constituents have to say. Thank you.
And I would like to, if I may, also, I'm happy to talk about meters or any other program at any time. So give me a call, I'll make the time and address it.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Alderman Ogilvy.
Thank you. Couple comments and a couple questions. I think it's important for the water department to come up with sort of a summary sheet for what's proposed here for residents, both in terms of maybe a rate comparison between St. Louis and other agencies nearby, sort of highlight some capital needs and talk about which of those capital needs would be paid for via a rate increase. Because I don't want to surprise people with this, right? Like, as soon as this
Yeah.
becomes a topic, people are going to be asking, why are we doing this? What does it pay for? And we need to be able to, I think, deliver a clear and consistent message on why and what. We talked about this a little bit, and this question has kind of been answered. But I'll just say my personal preference would be that we program in rate increases over a longer period of time and get away from this habit where we have a relatively large increase and then it's flat for 5 or 6 years, and then a relatively large increase and then flat. I think it's just more predictable for residents and probably more predictable for the water division to program in a 2 or 3 or 4% rate increase over a longer period of time, or maybe a rate increase and then factor in whatever the CPI is for that year to some type of variable thing. If we had done that in 2010, it may have been easier at this point to have already planned for some of this bonding that is probably definitely necessary at this point. So I think, why not do that now would be my comment. The couple questions on detail. I understand this is the 777 increase. It's across the board on every category of charge that the water division has. I wonder when the last time we sort of examined these relative rates was. And one question I have in particular is what's called the charity rate within the bill, which is the hospital rate. Do we know who pays that rate?
Well, it'd be the hospitals, it'd be some charities qualify for that, some don't. And I don't have a complete list for you today.
It'd be interesting to know, just because that's the lowest rate anybody pays. I assume probably Barnes is paying that rate.
They're paying the hospital rate, yes.
Yeah. So, the question is, they're paying the lowest rate. Is it appropriate that sort of a extremely well-funded organization is paying a comparatively much lower rate than, a low-income homeowner, for instance, per unit of water? So I think it's worth examining that, personally. And that's all. I mean, I think we're going to have to, the sheet you guys distributed of what items are most likely to be bonded for, I mean, this would have been one of the things I asked for, so I think that's important to have. But if possible, I mean, maybe you don't have this yet, but maybe even a little more detail on, where, if we know there's particular mains that would be replaced with this program, where those are. That kind of information might be helpful. That's all. Thanks.
Okay. Any more questions from members of the committee? Oh, okay. Thanks for your time. I do want to go. Oh, you do have a question.
Question,
She
but
snuck
we
one in.
just haven't given enough love for the fact that we have the best water in the country. I mean, we really are very lucky. And so thank you for the work you do. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for allowing me to say that. We're very grateful for the high quality of water. We're just making sure that we're representing the best interests of our constituents here. But we certainly do a phenomenal job providing water to the residents of the city of St. Louis. And to the county, as you mentioned.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
Thank you for all you do. The clerk will get you the information requests. I've got 9 of them. Did you also have requests, or did it satisfy? Okay, if you can send it to myself and the clerk.
Excuse me. Can I ask one more question? Could be provided later. I'd be interested to see, in terms of revenue, what the breakdown is for residential billing versus commercial billing.
Sure, we'll get that to you.
And that's probably relatively easy to figure out, so, thanks.
So I would just ask that anybody that has any other information requests to just send it to the clerk, copy myself, and the clerk will make a formal request to the department. And so they all are together. Great. Thank you, Mr. Scobie. I think we have at least one member of the public to sign up to discuss Board Bill 171, Mr. Gentry Trotter. Okay. Let's go with Mr. Trotter first.
President of the NAACP is also here, and Ollie Stewart could not be with us because she's preparing for her senior special Thanksgiving today, but she wants her comments included in what we're about to say. Ollie Stewart, as many of you know, represents Southside Senior Citizens. I'm here representing me as a citizen of St. Louis. I am the founder of Heat Up St. Louis. I worked for 25 years for Laclede Gas, helped create their utility assistance program. For the last 17 years, we've worked with Heat Up St. Louis. We're represented in 14 counties of Missouri and Illinois, including the city of St. Louis. But I'm just here representing me as a citizen and not the board, so my opinions expressed are those as a resident here. I'm a little concerned about the $10 million proposed increase, and I'm very pleased that everybody recognizes that the Missouri Public Service Commission is impaneled here by the aldermen, because you don't have a Missouri Public Service Commission. And the water in St. Louis County is regulated by the Missouri Public Service Commission. And I guess I'm a little concerned that the gentleman who was here from the Water Division, they are disconnected literally from the public and the public's needs. I get a lot of everyday complaints about the Water Division, about their inabilities to communicate to customers in need. I get a lot of complaints about accountability. So I'm hoping that the board of aldermen, this committee which governs this process, at least the good news is that you're thinking about having public meetings, I would hope in the communities, so they are more accessible to people so they can get to them. If you need someone to volunteer some places, churches and groups in different areas, that's fine too. I'm also concerned about the meters. The gentleman talked about meters, and he talked about customers wanting meters. What about the customers who moved into a neighborhood and they don't want meters? And it's very difficult to communicate to the Water Division. And we're not just talking about people that I talked to for the last 20 years. We're talking about me as well. So if I can't communicate, and if they can't communicate back to me, it's something wrong with the Water Division. And I'm not here to compliment anybody. They're paid to do their job. And I'm very disappointed in their lack of responsibility, their lack of communications to us as residents of the city of St. Louis, and their gross insensitivities toward the needs. What I'm concerned about is, as you know, under the Public Service Commission's rules, from November through March, you cannot disconnect people from their electric or natural gas. While I know the city is more very gentle, you have to be careful with budget variances and not to bankrupt you guys. I would hope that the process somewhere here, that the board thinks about a process that would in fact help, maybe at a certain level, that will prohibit the Water Division from cutting off during December, the coldest times of the year, December, January, and February, our seniors, our disabled people, low-income people, for inability to pay. Maybe there's some sort of, under the current public service rules, they can be cut off if they don't work out a budget plan. Otherwise, they can't be disconnected if it's above 32 degrees above. I think that the I think that's important for two reasons. It's a health and safety issue, because if you have no water, you can't cook, you can't wash, bathe, take medication, but also many of our older homes in the city have boilers. So forget about steam heat, forget about heat, and if you've paid your electric bill and you've paid your natural gas bill and somebody cuts off the water. The other point to the board is coming up with a plan of accountability for all of you. At what point a resource for disputing bills? You can't dispute them, they'll cut you off. It doesn't matter. I was paying $400 to $600 a month. For 2 years, my MSD bill was higher than that because they took the highest point. That was $400 a month. So we went to MSD and worked out something. The water division, they won't return calls. They don't listen. They're arrogant and they're indifferent. So I represent a lot of people in this community. And don't assume, because I'm standing up here, that you heard something about I have some deep pockets or some great wealth hidden away somewhere. That's not true. All of us want to be responsible. All of us want to live with a quality of life that we're not badgered. And so there is no system, Mr. Chairman, that there needs to be a system that if there's a dispute, that they can communicate with you instead of their communication is, we'll cut your water off. And I think that the collector of revenue that department has been very good in working with the community and trying to, pay as they go and help out. But in the end, they have no control either. So the issue of accountability is very critical for us. Some sort of program that helps them. I did not know. This guy never even returned calls, but I did not even know that United Way provided. Usually people don't provide water assistance, and the people I know, they scrape up and they pay for their water through their relatives. They don't get assistance. I get calls all the time, so I did not know that. I know Ameren and Laclede works together with the community and community people when they come to hearings and in your case, the Public Service Commission, in parentheses, the Board of Aldermen, they have everything laid out. Everything is laid out, everything is planned, everything is presented, and I feel very uncomfortable because today what I saw is a disarray that, this is the way we're going to do it. Well, those days are over with. It's our pocketbooks, your constituents' pocketbooks that are hurting, and it seems like I did not know also we provided water to the people over in St. Charles County, which is a great opportunity to increase their water bills as well and take some of the responsibility off of us. So those are my concerns. And last but not least, Mr. Chairman, it's easy to increase somebody's bill. I've worked with utilities for the last 35 years. So it's not all about greed, and it's not all about raises, but it is about responsibility to the community and the constituents that they serve. So when people do these increases, I didn't hear anything from the water division. I heard from you of your concerns. It was like foreign to them about helping people, and that crap about, I want to go on the record about this giving people false hopes. That's BS. You don't give people false hopes when you help them. What I've been doing is helping people in 14 counties with their utility bills 24/7. Unfortunately, in the summer and the winter, and also working with them on budgeting, on financial literacy, on energy efficiency and weatherization, so they can feel that they have a stake in responsibility of being able to pay something on their utility bills. And I'm not saying for you to just, okay, if you come up and consider that they don't pay anything, because I think the average person wants to be involved and have a responsible, paying something and not be considered as a deadbeat. And working with Ameren and Laclede, we have at least changed the thought process at Ameren on the necessities of working with people who are in need, not just with their charity programs, but working with them on disconnections, understanding that many of these people have machines in their homes, understanding when to disconnect somebody, when you can't disconnect somebody, despite the cold weather rule and regulations. Ameren has showed, of all of the utilities in Missouri and Illinois, Ameren has showed more significantly a sensitivity towards their customers' needs. And the water division in the city is so far behind. So I'm hoping, Mr. Chairman, that you do, in fact, consider some of the things we've said in your recommendations. I am available to volunteer to help you find places or people or whatever it takes. But these are serious times, and $10 million increase is a lot of money when the Public Service Commission in Jefferson City has already increased the Ameren bills, have already increased the natural gas bills, and who knows how many other bills, how many other increases are coming along. They never walk away with everything they want, and I don't think that the Water Division should walk away with what they want. We all understand about infrastructure. Nobody wants to see water lines blown up in the middle of the street. We understand that, but somewhere around there about managing what you got, using what you got, using it carefully, having the ability to listen to the public for ideas, having the ability to think of other things from this board on how you can run a better department. It's not been run that way in the last 15 years, and that's the end of my comments.
Thank you. And I think our last public comment is from Mr. Adolphus Pruitt from the NAACP.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, I won't be long, and I really don't have enough information to really have a opinion one way or the other, but there's just some questions and just some things that popped up in my head while listening, because I was not aware of this until the other day. But you know, what is happening is that these increases are being lined up to occur simultaneously with the ones that are happening at MSD. And as you know, we just passed some significant rate increases that are going to happen at MSD. So right now, for instance, if you connected to the sewer system, you're paying about $30, $40 a month, and that's if you have one room, one bathroom, and one water closet, and the number goes up for each one additional things you have, and those increases are starting to occur. They kick in now, and they're going to occur over the next 5 years to get to a point. I forgot what the number is, but it's an astronomical number, because we were against those increases. So it would be interesting to see these increases lined up with the ones that are occurring at MSD, and the ones you pay for. I think you pay for trash now. It'd be interesting to see all of those things lined up, just to see just to see what that impact is and what that dollar amount is going to be, because all of those are going to occur. The other thing is that I would be interested to know, so the city charges a sewer lateral fee on your property taxes that does not go to the water division. So it'd be interesting to know where that goes, and why can't maybe some of that go to pay for some of the infrastructure needs of the water division? Because I know that fee exists there, because if you pay property taxes, you pay a sewer lateral fee. And I don't know where it goes, but I know it doesn't go to the water division. And so maybe that fee, maybe even an increase of that fee, could help pay for some of those infrastructure needs. And then the last thing is that even more unique, because MSD charges their rates the same way the water division charges their rates. If it's a meter, you pay by 100 cubic feet or whatever it is of water. And if it's a flat rate, you pay by the rooms and water closets. The exact same structure is used as relates to paying those fees. But the one thing I found unique now, because I know that I haven't kept up with it, but we're looking at it. So MSD, through the bond issue and through some of the money that's coming from sewer fees, has set aside and has to set aside for the green infrastructure a significant amount of dollars. And I know some of those dollars, MSD and the city are collaborating to use to demolish properties all over the city, and it's in the millions. So again, if MSD can find a way to take those dollars to demolish city-owned properties and in the millions, that it would appear that there may be some ways, since what you do with the water is connected to the sewers, to maybe look at that source and see if somehow some of that source can be used to increase pay for some of the infrastructure costs as relates to what's going on with the water division. And one other thing, just for informational purposes, and he may know, but I haven't done real estate development in a while, but when I was doing it, any new construction project, residential or commercial, and any significant rehab project, if you was establishing a new water service, you had to install a meter. You didn't have a choice. You couldn't go flat rate. And so with all of the new construction, residential related, and all of the rehabs going on, the number of people with meters versus not, that should be, it should have changed and should be incrementally changing over time. If that policy is still in effect, you know, those new properties are metered. They're not on a flat rate. I thought that was, and then I heard him mention the fact that if there was no water, the fire department wouldn't have nothing to do because they wouldn't have water. I would beg to differ that the fire department, majority of their calls are not the calls where they had to have water. It's more other type of emergencies, and thank God we don't have a bunch of fires. So I feel good about that. But they answer a whole lot of other calls and where they don't need water. But those are the questions that jumped out of mind. It would be great to know as this bill goes on to see just how those impacts in place. And I appreciate your time, Mr. Chairman, and members of the committee.
Thank you. Mr. Scobie, would you come up for a second? So a couple of questions that were brought up. One, new construction, meters required on new construction in the city?
Not at this time.
Okay. And
Well, let me clarify that. For residential accounts, they're not required. For industrial, commercial accounts, they are required. I mean, if they have, if the usage of the facility is, allows for a flat rate charge, they can have that.
Okay.
Mr. Scooby, what about multifamily buildings, you know, apartment buildings and things? Do they require new construction? We've had quite a few of those, many coming online. Do those require meters?
If they're big enough, they do.
What's the sort of, I guess, what's the
Is it 12
threshold?
or 16? Is it 12 or 16 units for requiring a meter? No, it's more than that. I think it's 12.
Somewhere in the ballpark of 12 to 16, okay.
Yeah, when you go from basically a flat building to a more of a apartment building, that's when it's triggered.
Is there a requirement for meters for new construction in the county?
Yes, they don't allow, they're pure meters.
All meters. Okay. And could any such sewer lateral fees or anything like that be used for repairing the water infrastructure in the city?
That's a separate program that I'm not involved with.
Okay.
I can answer.
Any other questions? Go ahead. Alderman Coulter.
Mr. Trotter, one of the public speakers, raised some concerns about I guess, customer service and things. I don't frankly know much about your customer service program. Could you sort of talk about how many people you have working on customer service, what they do? I mean, I would, members of the public, I guess, if they have a water concern, I don't know if they're supposed to call you guys or Citizen Service Bureau or what. Could you talk about some of those issues?
Well, they're free to call either, but if they have an issue with the water bill or the water service, they need to call us. And they typically do call us and talk to one of our customer representatives that will address it.
And is that in-house? Do you outsource that? Who does your
That's
customer
in-house.
service? Okay, how many people do you have in that department? Do you know?
It's, is it 15 now? 15.
All right. What about like other forms of communication online? Communicating with you guys via email, on your website, social media? Do you have any of those?
We have the website, we do that. We also have we're not on Twitter, we don't have a Facebook account. And so basically we talk in person or on the phone or on the web.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Ogilvy, you had a question?
Oh, I was just going to answer that sewer lateral fee question.
Go ahead.
So the sewer lateral fee is $28 a year for single-family homes. Generates, I think, about $700,000 or $800,000 a year, and all of that money goes into repairing sewer laterals that break within the public right-of-way. So if a resident has a break, it's not in their yard, the city comes out, hires a contractor to repair that to make sure they have indoor plumbing, basically. And that's been a flat rate that hasn't changed since 1989, I believe. And today, in 2016, that $700,000 or $800,000 a year doesn't really even quite cover the repairs we need to do every year. So at the end of the budget year, they kind of shut things down for a couple months until they can start that up again. So I'm kind of interested in increasing that fee, actually, but we haven't we haven't got there. But thanks.
Alderman Villa?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I don't know, just a slice of life issue here. A new project contained in the 11th Ward, Mississippi Bluffs / Shoto Bluff Drive. 32 or 34 new condominium units. One couple wanted a meter, and I think they were initially told you can't have one. And then I contacted Mr. Sonderman, and the water department acquiesced, and they gave the people the permission to, in fact, install a meter. So of the 34, and they're all sold, so one couple wanted a meter because they felt they were going to use less water. So in that regard, I'm throwing that out as a source of information. I don't know what, it's really emblematic of nothing, but I think to the alderman from the 7th point, we've got more than a couple thousand new apartments going up, and I don't know that how those individual apartment buildings are monitored, but I can see if everybody wanted a meter, you'd need a whole new department just to monitor meters and read the meters and change the meters and, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a flat rate it's not necessarily easier, but from a common sense standpoint, flat rate makes more sense.
There's less personnel needs, demands, and infrastructure capital needs for installing it with flat rate. You set it up, and outside of occasionally going out to turn it on and off as needed, it's you don't have to spend any money doing it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
All right. Alderman, if there are no other questions, we will conclude the hearing today on Board Bill 171. Thank you, but we do still have Board Bill 173. So hopefully this one will not take as much time. I'm sorry, public comment is over on this one, but there will be several hearings on this issue. Yeah, so there'll be a lot of opportunity for public comment. Board Bill 173, Mr. Scobie, it's also you. We should get you a chair or something.
No, this is fine. I said too much as it is.
Okay, can you describe to us what 173 does?
This is a renewal of a agreement that we've had in the past with MSD. They purchase our billing data is what they use to base their billing data to these customers we have in common. It's a common practice. They have a similar agreement with other utilities. So what I would ask is that we go ahead and renew this. The other one expired, and we're still providing it and getting the money, but it'd be good to have it.
When did the last one expire?
At the end of last year.
And how long was the term of that previous one?
I don't recall, it's multi-year.
Okay. How many years have we done this?
Provide them the data?
Yeah.
I'm not sure. Decades would be my guess.
Okay. So we've always, for practical purposes,
Yes,
we've always had
yes.
this agreement with them.
Yeah, it's a pretty common arrangement.
Okay. I think one thing was brought to our attention, that the actual agreement is not online, it's just the bill. Mr. Clerk, can you make sure we put the agreement online too, so people can?
I'm sure that it's online,
Is it?
but the agreement is attached to the PDF, and so you have to open it. I will change that so that it's easier to access for people, but it is online. It's probably just difficult to access.
Okay. Questions? Alderman Bosley?
No.
Alderman Cone? Left. Alderman Villa?
Yeah, Kurt, how much fair and substantial compensation are we receiving from MSD for this?
It's 13,000 a year. 13,000 a year.
Oh. Pretty minimal, but
Yeah.
obviously if you, I mean, you have to cooperate with the sewer district. That just makes common sense, I guess. Okay, I thought maybe we were making lots of money on it.
No,
Okay.
no one's giving us lots of, a month, excuse me, 13,000 a month. My mistake.
Thank you.
Alderman Coder?
Okay, you chimed in, it is 13,000 a month, not per year, per the agreement. How does this rate, does our agreement with MSD compare to, I guess, Missouri American Waters? Do you know what they're paying?
I think it's 26,000 a month, but they have more accounts. to
More
provide.
accounts? Okay. And
I
is
looked
this,
at that.
while we're on the subject of rate increases, was there any increase from the last agreement, or has it been 13,000 a month? Was that the same number in the last agreement?
I don't recall the actual agreement, how much it was, but it was an increase, and we renegotiated.
Okay, so it's gone up, and does that, I mean, are you guys able to cover your costs of providing this information to MSD and everything with that number?
Yeah, it's just sharing a file, computer file with them.
Okay, thank you, no questions.
Alderwoman Spencer?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. So as far as, so this is an agreement that St. Louis City has with MSD.
Yes,
Is there a representative of MSD here?
no.
Mr. Chairman, I think if we're establishing an agreement between two entities, perhaps we could ask questions of MSD?
That-
Or, is,
Yeah, that seems appropriate.
okay, so I apologize for failing to have read through this with due diligence prior to this hearing. The $13,000 monthly rate, can you describe what that's for?
It is, what we do is give them, I guess when we send out our bills to our customers, we share who we're billing and how much we're billing. I mean, flat rate, you know, like for the meter accounts, they get to see how much water they are using. And with that information, they build, MSD builds their bill to send to these common customers. So, but they need this information for a basis for their bill.
And is part of the information we're transferring this reduced, these, whether they're on these reduced rates and things of that nature, does MSD mirror these, the same billing?
I'm not sure of their structure, but they're not looking at the dollar amounts that we're charging. They're looking at the basis for our bill, whether it's a meter, a volume of water used, or the number of components in a flat rate.
I understand, okay. Again, this is maybe a small issue, but one that's come up is, again, with these community gardens paying MSD fees, that, they're not actually using MSD. Some water usage is not associated with waste management. It's my understanding that the MSD rates will be revisited next year. Mr. Chairman, do I have a misunderstanding of that? Are you understanding the
I don't know
consent
exactly when the
decree and
rates are.
how that?
That's something we can get from MSD.
Okay, the reason, I mean, I think when you're, I think a lot of, when you're looking at water, the cost of water, and especially comparing cross cities and across states, which is something I did, just very briefly on my computer. There, often water and sewer waste management pricing is coupled together, and I think they are related to one another. So I think with this large water increase, I'd like to, have a somewhat understanding of what we might expect from MSD as a mirroring price increase for them, and what that might look like in a holistic way.
Sure. So I'm not opposed to asking a member of the MSD to come in and answer some questions related to this.
When a person fails to pay their MSD bill, I get this is a question for MSD. I think that's, that's all the questions I have at this moment, Mr. Chairman.
Alderman Ogilvy? Okay. So it sounds like at least one member, maybe two. I'd like to hear from MSD as well. So do you think maybe we can have a representative from MSD come to the committee?
Sure, I would think so. I think they'd be happy to come.
That'd be fine. Is there any urgency on this?
Not on this bill, no.
Okay. So maybe we'll reconvene after Thanksgiving, so in about 2 weeks, come back, have a representative from MSD. We'll also schedule a second hearing on Board Bill 171, and you guys will get us the requested information, so we'll be a little bit more informed. Any other questions, comments, requests for information? If none, this hearing is adjourned.